Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our July edition of our Startup Resources series. I'm Lisa Bajornis, Executive Director of our Kentucky Innovation Hubs with Kentucky Science and Technology Corporation. And of course, I'm joined together with our friends at the Cabinet for Economic Development and the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, so that we can bring you this monthly webinar. For those of you that are new, we welcome you. And for those of you that are series subscribers, we welcome you back. And as you all know, this is an opportunity for us to share all of the latest and greatest resources that are applicable for the founders and the entrepreneurs that you all are coaching, supporting, providing programming to, all in an effort to help them advance their businesses. And then, of course, all of that helps to raise Kentucky's economy. So again, we welcome you to this edition. Just a quick rundown of our agenda today. As you know, we will have a great topic. We've got an excellent one that I'm super excited about today with our panel of speakers talking about entrepreneurship through acquisition, or ETA. We've got a hub highlight today. We'll be talking with our friends at the SOAR Innovation Hub. And then, of course, I will close everything hopefully right before noon Eastern Time with the latest in events and programs that you want to mark on your calendars. Just a reminder, please go ahead and drop any questions that you may have for our topic panelists in the chat, and I will moderate that as we go. I am also very excited to share with you that we have quite a number of new team members. So we have some welcomes in order. Given that July always starts our new fiscal year, we've got some new additions to our Innovation Hub team, and I hope that you'll join me in welcoming Jen Callahan, who is the new Executive Director for the Amplify Innovation Hub in our Louisville region. We also want to welcome Kelly Wright, who is the new Programs Director leading the Create Innovation Hub in the Bowling Green region. And then joining Jen at Amplify is Mary Grace Matson, who is their new Director of Venture Growth. And then finally, to round it out, we want to welcome Annika Bontrager, who is the new Program Manager with our Blue North Innovation Hub in the Northern Kentucky Covington region. So delighted and thrilled to welcome all of these new team members to our Innovation Hub collaborative. So welcome. And also a reminder that we do record each of these webinars. We do have a library of those resources so that you are welcome to go back at any time in order to review them or share them with others. Just go to the kstc.com site. You'll see a menu item at the top, Our Initiatives. Click on Innovation Hubs and just scroll down that page. You'll see past Startup Resources Series webinars, and you can review any of those on the topics there. So feel free to do that as you like. All right. I have a very short introduction, and then we are going to jump right into it. Again, drop any of your questions in the chat, and we'll get to those in just a little bit. But today we are exploring an exciting and really increasingly important pathway to entrepreneurship. We like to think of entrepreneurship traditionally as founders, as entrepreneurs who come to us for support, for assistance, for coaching and guidance. But through acquisition of another business, Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, or ETA, is gaining tremendous interest, tremendous popularity, and Kentucky is no different. And while many of us spend our time helping founders launch startups, this is a new opportunity that's gaining significant momentum. So I'm going to stop my share at this point and know that helping entrepreneurs acquire and grow existing businesses is also becoming part of the support efforts that we contribute. So we are really fortunate in Kentucky to have two regional leaders who are building this movement in their regions. We have Dave Knox, that we all know and love from Blue North, who is founder of CincyETA, and we also have Brian Nutt, who is a longtime serial entrepreneur and startup advisor. He is founder of ETA Louisville. So a reminder, drop any questions you might have for either Dave or Brian in the chat, and we'll get to those in a bit. And gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us for our monthly webinar. Dave, you're very familiar with these. By way of introduction, I'll let you start it off, Dave. Just kind of give us a very quick rundown, and then I've got a slew of questions I will ask both of you. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Dave.
for sure. Happy to. So starting with, what is CincyETA and where that came from. So CincyETA was something that we incubated under Blue North starting in summer of 2023, if I've got my dates correct with it. And it was really inspired by kind of two separate things. One is my own personal experience with ETA. I actually, before joining Blue North, the last company that I owned was one that I had practiced ETA, that I had purchased and gone through the acquisition, the running it, and then the eventual exit for it. But two, it was really driven by the needs of our community. And a lot of the conversations and coffee meetings that I was having were with amazing talent that, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we would have been having coffee about how they could be a tech startup founder. And instead, there was this bubbling of why they were interested in purchasing a business. And what we kind of quickly found out was, despite the community that we had around technology startups, there wasn't any sort of really place for ETA entrepreneurs to gather. And so that's why we kind of started, was this idea of, let's at least bring a place for some of the best and the brightest talent to gather, have discussions around it, and let's see what comes out of it. Fast forward to today, and since ETA is over 400 members, we actually think it might be the largest regional non-university affiliated ETA group in the country, and has been a really fun journey that has led to discussions with Brian's and others about what we can do with ETA in a broader scale.
Yeah, excellent. Brian, go ahead and give us a little bit of your background and how you ventured into Louisville ETA.
Yeah, my story is a little less intentional maybe than Dave's, like a lot of things probably that we do. I know I've gotten to know Dave. But I'm really an exited software guy. Had an exit in 2018, then started another software company in 2021 that I worked on for about 3 years that didn't scale the way I wanted, and decided to pivot and not continue that, put in as much money and time into that business as I had been previously doing, and which left me thinking about what was next. As part of that, I just sort of thought about the impact of even my exit and what seems like maybe a trend or a characteristic, which is when we sell companies around here, we oftentimes sell them to out-of-town capital. And when that happens, the wealth, talent, and goodwill of that business leaves the state too. And so as I started to think about that, I was also deciding on what I wanted to do with my career, and decided rather than doing startups with AI and just having a lack of conviction on vertical SaaS, which I still love, by the way, the tinkerer for sure, thought I'd just go out and start looking at buying businesses. And so I didn't know what ETA was. So I thought it was just buying a business, and then came to find out this was a movement that, and to Dave's point, for someone like me, I didn't have any really where to go. So I'm much more familiar with sort of venture, raise, scale, exit, maybe recap to private equity exit, than I am about going and doing M&A. And so it gave me a bit of imposter syndrome. And meaning I didn't, how could I become a serious buyer and even convince myself of the right path to do it? And so taking those two things, which is reflecting on the experience when I sold my company and watched it walk out of town, and the need for transitions of these smaller businesses within our region. That's what got me to call Dave, actually. And Dave was really instrumental in us firing up Louisville and coaching us through that. And today, I think we might have, we started this, the first meeting was December, like the real meeting. I think, Dave, you came up in October last year to kind of talk us through this. Started very small. Today, I think we have maybe 150, 175 folks that have signed up for it. Not as many are actively involved, but it certainly shows an interest
Yeah,
for sure. So
absolutely.
that's maybe the short, long story. There you go.
Okay, great. Brian, I'll stick with you. And for our audience, which again are primarily members of our innovation hubs, team members that are participate across a wide variety of entrepreneurial support organizations. For them, most people in our audience are, as we've said, very familiar, work with founders in terms of startup creation, also working to help them to scale their business, but maybe much newer to this concept of entrepreneurship through acquisition. So how do you explain ETA to someone who's maybe never heard of it?
Yeah. So there's three parts to this that have to do to any deal. There are three things. There has to be a willing seller, there has to be a capable operator, and there has to be capital. So there's sort of three different explanations. To a seller, it's important, I think, for all of us to socialize that there are capable operators and there's willing capital in our region to help do these deals. So surety at close is important to any seller, and I think Dave and I would vouch for that. You don't want to waste time talking to people when you're selling your business. If you can socialize that and make it true with these organizations, like what Dave's done and what we're starting to do here, it adds some validity. On the founder or entrepreneur side, it's not I think there's a misconception of it's going to be easy or, oh, this is a better route necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easier or better. It's just different. The workload is the same. You have to be committed
Very
and
important
not
point.
think that this is going to be, oh, I'm just going to go buy this and go stay on the beach and manage it from my phone. Right. And then on the investor side, I think that it's a little bit easier of a mind shift, which is I have a concrete entity you can go and stand on and visit and potentially meet the operator coming in. It's a little bit more realistic pitch than what I'm used to, which is software and what the
Mm-hmm.
idea may be in 5 years when you can stand on a business that's been around for 5, 10,
Right.
15, 20 years. So that's the explanation.
Okay. Dave, what, in your opinion, why has ETA become such a rapidly growing pathway to entrepreneurship, particularly over the last several years? You both talk about this as a movement. You talk about certainly the tremendous traction you've both mentioned within your respective regions. Why is this such a rapidly growing pathway?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple of things that have come about. One is, and anybody that spends time with ESOs hears amazingly talented people that say, I could never be a founder. And what I think a lot of times the fear is the coming up with the idea from scratch,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
the uncertainty comes with that. ETA is a really interesting path for those talents. Those that want to be a CEO, want to be a general manager, understand business and how to grow and how to make things, but maybe don't necessarily love the coming up with the idea phase. So I think that's one part that has really been attractive. Here in the Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, that's probably one of the biggest drivers because we're a town with 8 or 9 Fortune 500s depending on the year. That's a lot of really wicked smart people, but that want to run the business, but don't necessarily want to come up with the idea of the business from
Right.
scratch.
Right.
So I think that's one factor. Second factor is, I think in a lot of times we tend to maybe have especially in our region, founder or entrepreneurs that maybe might be a little bit older. And because of that, you have costs of life that come into it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't necessarily afford to spend a year not paying a salary or anything else. ETA is pretty interesting in that because you're buying a business that, if you've done a good ETA acquisition, actually has profit and sales and everything else. And so that great talent doesn't have to make a decision of going to not have any income for foreseeable future. They can actually do that. And I think that becomes an interesting not that it makes it less scary, but it removes maybe one of those things that would have been a roadblock immediately.
Yeah.
Because you can pay yourself, you can buy health insurance, you can do all those things because
Right.
it's a real business. So there's some of that I think that's pretty attractive. And then the third is, and we're all the number of startups we saw after the movie Social Network came out, like there are webs and flows, and there is a lot of conversations right now about the silver tsunami, the number of
Yes.
people retiring, and that conversations gets people to think about maybe a career path that they didn't even know was available. That changes that view. And
Yeah.
if you talk to top tier MBA programs, you've seen this wave of, there was a time where it was everybody wanted to do brand management, then everybody wanted to do Wall Street, then everybody wanted to be a startup founder and go to Y Combinator. And now ETA is becoming one of those paths that is becoming pretty popular out of those programs.
Yeah. You mentioned the silver tsunami, so we'll continue with that. Kentucky has thousands of small business owners that are approaching retirement. So how significant is that opportunity that then creates these new aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So, if you look at the number of businesses that we have in the state and do the math based on what the national forecast is of number of likely approaching, retiring in the next 10 years, the math adds up to about 190,000 businesses in Kentucky that likely have an owner that is planning on retiring in the next decade. That's got a lot of assumptions in there, but let's call that a broad number. And I'd actually probably guess it's slightly over 200,000 because I think we probably are a population that's slightly older and thus has a little slightly above that. The national numbers related to that is from surveys they've done, 78% of retiring in the next 10-year owners actually do not have a transition plan in place. And so that's a pretty scary number when you think of north of 150,000 companies that might not have any plan for what they want to do.
Right.
Maybe they're hoping that their kids will take it over. Maybe they have no plan for that. Maybe they hope an employee will. But the point is they don't have a concrete plan for that transition. And we can do all the work we do as hubs and ESOs, but that's an awfully big leaky bucket if those numbers come true.
Definitely. All right, Brian, from your perspective, why would you say that ETA is particularly well suited for communities all across Kentucky, not just Louisville, not just Northern Kentucky, but let's say also rural communities? Is there more of an appetite? Is there more opportunity, particularly in our more rural, less populated areas across the state, for this pathway to entrepreneurship?
Well, that's, some of the stats around that and the rural opportunities I'll leave to Dave. He probably knows that better than me. But what I will say, it's more like, why should we do this? And the reason is the characteristic that I was saying before. So while I'm certainly a proponent of startups and will continue to be, we need to focus on this opportunity and also the defense that needs to be part of this, which is in a rural area or Louisville or our surrounding region, sort of lower MSA cities and towns. When a business sells, the economic impact of that business that may go out of town, and that impacts service providers, legal, finance, all those other things, and just the HQ of the financing, the wealth that it creates to leave that town. The other thing that I think we have in our favor when doing these deals is because our economy is smaller, we have, and everyone knows this in Kentucky or certainly Louisville, we're sort of one call away from finding out about the other person. So it creates an inherent mentality of trust. And when you have that trust capability, then you can connect founders to potential operators and the capital, and that should compound itself. So that's why you do it. And that's the opportunity that we have, that somebody from out of town that just may be more sophisticated, maybe have a little more capital availability, and the readiness to act. The speed of these deals is incredibly important, which is why communities in the ETA space is really important, because it adds that what I was saying before, but it compresses the time to go from maybe imposter, can I even do this, to, oh, I know check writers, oh, I know capable, to get you through that process quickly when you don't have the sort of institutional approach that out of towners do. So that's why we should do it. It's a smaller economy, one touch away from creating trust. to get the deals done. It's just incredibly important to do.
Yeah, great. That's very helpful. Dave, let's talk a little bit about the ETA journey, if you will. So walk us through what that ETA journey actually looks like. So what are the major milestones from deciding to pursue an acquisition to successfully operating a business? And I want you to talk a moment about something Brian mentioned. You know, there has to be buyers, sellers, and of course, capital. Does ETA enable or allow for a reduction of risk because this business exists versus traditional super early startups? You're muted.
Didn't want you guys hear the better blend going behind me. So there's a lot of questions in that one there that
Yeah.
could go into, and it's probably a 2-hour discussion. But let's you know, at the very high level, you know, as you think about the life cycle of what ETA is. So we did this. We had an event that CincyETA did with University of Cincinnati in May, and we started off with this introduction to ETA. In high level, we kind of talked about there's 7 stages of the complete ETA life cycle, as we called it. So stage number 1 is prepare. So prepare being your investment criteria and the deal team assembly. You know, what are you looking to buy? Do you have the right people around you to help you evaluate something? Because all those other questions you ask, that will be very different if you're buying a company that is, you know, couple tens of thousands of dollars of profit. That means you have to be working in the business and you can't hire anything, versus something that's maybe a lower middle market PE type of opportunity that is, you know, 7 figures of EBITDA and different things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that. The deal team assembly, what they mean by that is, do you have the right people around you to help do the stuff you're going to need to do? This is where it's a little bit different maybe than tech venture. You know, the day you start your tech startup, you don't need to have your accounting firm figured out. You don't necessarily need your lawyers all the ways until you start doing IP and that first term sheet and all of those things. You don't necessarily need your bank because you don't have any money that you have to deposit yet. So, but all of those things you need to have with your deal team so they can help you really dive in on the business. You know, you want to be able to do a quality of earnings and figure out, like, yeah, the founder told me that the company does this profit, but does it really? What's that mean? So you got that number 1. Stage 2 is the search, lead generation, generating prospects, screening prospects. And there's a whole gamut of what that can go and where it can go into it. But you got to go find the companies. It's not like they're just hanging up a shingle and they're out there every day that you can pick and say, I want to buy that HVAC company with $1 million of EBITDA. Like, you have to roll up your sleeves and do the hard work. The third is the engagement phase. You know, that's when you get into NDAs, doing a SIM review, which is, you know, the background of what the company is, doing the seller calls, because a lot of these companies, they're private companies. They've never shared information public, and they're not just going to willy-nilly even tell you what their EBITDA is. So you have to gain that trust and have those conversations. 4th stage is LOI. So that's getting into price negotiation, exclusivity, things of that nature. 5th is the diligence. So that's the quality of earnings I mentioned. That's the legal verification. That's looking into all the things like, do you want to do an asset sale? Do you want to do an equity sale? What's that mean? Then stage 6 is the close, financing, funding, legal transfer, all that goes into it, employment agreements. And then stage 7 is the operating. You know, transition the CEO, the value creation, and all the really, really hard work that comes after that of running the business.
Right.
You know, on the question of, is it any less risky? I go back to kind of what Brian started with, is it's the same way of saying, is it harder or easier? Yes and no. You know, it all differs in so many different ways. There are some things that are easier, because, you know, you do have revenue. You don't have to go out and necessarily do the same fundraising things. but it's a lot more stressful as well because of that stage of that business and what it means.
Right.
So there's pros and cons, and it really
Yeah,
depends
yeah.
on what the purpose is looking for and how you're wired. Because rarely are you going to buy one of these companies that is just you that you're playing with. You might be playing with the lives of 10, 20, 40 people that make
Right,
their livelihood off of this business, that you're inheriting that. And that's going to be a
right.
lot different than me just quitting my job to try and do a startup.
Yeah.
So there's pros, cons, good, bad, everything in between.
Good. Appreciate the milestones or stages as you've laid them out. Not too dissimilar in an analogy of, buying a home. But also looking at the fact that while there may not be fundraising initially and the risk inherent in that, there is, as you've said, the the awareness of you've got employees that need to be taken care of, as well as existing customers as well.
Yep.
So good.
No doubt.
Brian, what makes someone, and let's talk about the individual, what makes someone a really strong ETA candidate? Are there certain skills, backgrounds, or mindsets that tend to be more successful in this pathway than other individuals? Is it incumbent or necessary that the person understand a specific industry? Before they look at a particular opportunity they might be interested in? What makes a strong ETA candidate?
Okay. So yeah, I don't want to compartmentalize a person necessarily because I think that anyone is capable. I mean, and until you do it, I mean, you don't really know. So then and failure is one of those is an option, right? In this, as Dave was saying, and I alluded to earlier. But I think characteristics, um, you need to, I think, be honest with yourself as you go into looking at these different businesses. Unless you get are really sort of lucky to find the exact right fit with your experience and your background, you're going to be looking at businesses that might make you a little uncomfortable. So you need to admit to yourself and be honest with yourself and others on how to create the deal team that Dave was just talking about. So if you can support yourself with the experience of others, particularly as you look at a business and learn about it, you should feel better about it. So learn how to de-risk it, and then be willing and know that as you enter into this, it's going to be all in. This is not something that's anything short of that. And I think that's a misconception of folks. So it's the characteristic more than anything, which is being capable to problem solve,
Yeah.
to work as a team, develop team, honest with yourself and others, and what you bring to the table and what you lack, and then go all in. I think you have to be willing to do that. It's
Okay.
not a person, yes or no. It's about the characteristics of that.
Yeah. Okay. Very helpful. So again, I'll remind everyone who's on our call today, if you've got any questions for our panelists, please go ahead and drop those in the chat, and we'll get to those in just a little bit. Before we get to that, Dave, of course, most of our audience includes our innovation hubs, entrepreneur support organizations, universities, lenders, and ecosystem partners or builders. So when you think about all of those support roles, what is the role that they should play in supporting ETA in each of their given regions?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit biased, obviously, on it, but I think one of the things is we need to make sure that with ETA we do not make any of the mistakes that can tend to be made with entrepreneurial support of a bunch of splintering efforts of one group doing this, one group doing that, et cetera. And instead say we're really going to get in the same boat for the community to row. That's been a founding principle with CincyETA, and I know it's one that Brian has driven across the board with what he's doing for Louisville. Is let's make this an umbrella that brings everything in, because there are a lot of different folks. There's the searchers, there's the sellers, there's the support, et cetera, down the line. So one is row in the right direction. In the enthusiasm, don't just go stand up a group that's off on its own that hasn't looked at what's going on. in your community, is there a meetup already taking place? Is the local university have anything going on? What can you do with that? We saw that here in Cincinnati, where University of Cincinnati, they had a really passionate professor who decided to launch a conference 2 years ago, but hadn't taken time to understand what else was going on around. And luckily, we were able to get CincyETA involved, and now that's become a really big partnership. But you gotta get in the same boat and row instead of just going off to do something. So I think that's the first and foremost. And then I think the other things, and this goes back to the Boulder thesis that we've had for the startup world, it translates with ETA as well, that this has to be the entrepreneurs leading this. This has to be authentic. It has to be people that are in the trenches, and it can't be driven by the service providers or somebody that's looking to monetize this for their own self-gain. It's got to be a community effort, because this is a very fragile thing of facilitating these interactions between business owners and generational transition. So we need to keep it pure in that regard as well, and have that as a mindset.
Okay, great. Brian, so here's a scenario for you. An entrepreneur walks into one of our innovation hubs or one of our ESOs, says, I'm interested in buying a business. What should be that first conversation that happens with someone that has that interest?
Well, I think Dave outlined it very well. I mean, and that's more or less what I was alluding to before, which is putting yourself in a position where you are actually serious about making a transaction happen. If you are presenting yourself in any way as uneducated and wasting time, it doesn't matter whether it's a service provider, a seller, or anybody else, they're going to be less enthusiastic about getting involved in your journey. So you have to be prepared and show the desire to get prepared. And that's number one. And frankly, the thing that I did myself was go through a little bit of self-reflection on what I wanted to do. The thing that's beautiful about ETA is that you have a choice in deciding what you want to do. And so that could be buying a company, as Dave said, with 20 or 35 people, or it could be acquiring a business where you're sort of a solopreneur and stepping into another e-com business or something like that. So that's the beauty of it. But you have to do that work yourself, then get yourself prepared to actually go do the work. So if I was in your all shoes, I would be trying to figure out what that playbook looks like to get them from step one to the conversation with the seller in a serious way.
Yeah. Both of you have mentioned, various different meetups. Dave, you mentioned that one of the universities there was putting together a conference. What are some other really valuable resources, educational programs, specific mentors, community connections, et cetera, that currently exist throughout Kentucky that our audience should be familiar with?
Yeah, so I would say I would broaden it beyond Kentucky, because really Kentucky right now, we have CincyETA in Northern Kentucky, we have ETA Louisville that Brian's leading, and then we have the new efforts at Western Kentucky that are the three main things.
Right.
I know University of Louisville has some efforts just starting, which Brian can talk about when he responds. But those are really the three within Kentucky. What I'd encourage anybody that starts with this is ETA is a culture where there's language that it's kind of expected that you've gone into it and learned it before you jump in. So Buy Then Build by Walker Deibel is probably the book that almost every single ETA person starts with. And it's a good 101. It's a reason it's kind of the starting point. And then Harvard Business Review also has a How to Buy a Small Business. That's the other one that a lot of folks start with. So first, go read those and get involved. Then second is there is a really good podcast culture that kind of exists around this. Everything from, Acquisitions Anonymous, that's kind of a little bit more tongue in cheek, but is useful to kind of see what this looks like, to a lot more formal kind of podcasts that are out there. So go dive in on that. And then SMB Twitter is a real thing. that is a lot of different stuff that you can go follow and learn, the folks that are leading the way of talking about
Yeah.
holdcos versus those that are more self-funded searches. And you can start learning because it's also very different of ETA. There's probably 5 or 6 different paths that are almost micro ecosystems within ETA overall. So go learn and figure out some of those. So that's how I'd say.
And say the name of the book again. A couple people missed that the first time.
Yeah. Buy, then build. So very simple. Buy it, then build it. And then buying a small business.
Right.
And Walker Deibel, it's Deibel, is the person that wrote that book.
Perfect.
And be cautious. There's a lot of masterminds and other things that have popped up that want to charge you money. Avoid all of those. You don't need any of those things yet.
Okay, cool. Brian,
unless Brian's doing one, and then you should do it.
Thank you. Yep, we got Annika's already on it. Thank you, Annika. She's dropping that in the chat for everybody. Brian, what would you add to the resource list?
There's one other one, Dave. I think it's called searchfunder.com, which is not really a search fund. It's just like a community you can go on and connects people around the country and certainly locally. So people go in there. It's kind of a message board community, almost a Reddit, so to speak, where you can go and ask questions and get help and referrals and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, and relate to that, the question people ask after Search Funder a lot is the broker sites that are out there. Almost every ETA person starts looking at broker sites.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a whole different, that in an audience like this, I won't voice my full opinion on, but it is a good place to start looking because you can see what type of companies are out there, and it's people that have raised their hand at least say, I'm selling my business, and you can start looking. For those that are familiar with being like an angel investor, it's kind of like Angel List in that you can start learning the art of how you evaluate stuff.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's the deal flow you should be jumping after, but.
Yeah, great. And thank you, Annika. She's already putting all those resources in the chat. We appreciate that. All right, just to wrap us up before we look at the chat with any of your questions, for both of you, looking ahead, let's say 5 years into the future, and as this movement gains momentum, and particularly in Kentucky, what does success look like for the whole ETA ecosystem across Kentucky as we look ahead with all of these concerted efforts? Brian, I'll start with you if you've got some thoughts around what does success look like? What can this look like for us?
Sure. So at least for us down here, maybe I'm a little more direct in how I think we should measure success. And I don't measure it on the amount of people that have signed up or the amount of people that come to meetings. It's really only measured by deals done. And so now if you start there, then you have to work backwards. I think this goes to what Dave was saying. So we need to be working together. So there's a tremendous amount of deals out there. They might be very difficult to surface, but they're out there sort of hiding in plain sight. And these deals are not right for everyone. I mean, Dave and I may look at deals together that we like, or he may love a certain space that I absolutely don't feel like I want to be involved in. So the idea is, as these deals surface, again, based on an economy of trust, which is true in our state and in the region, and as you find someone who you have to create this connective tissue. So what I hope we have is a connective tissue across the state that is collaborative and that goes back. Somehow we need to bring the information in a way that is, under an umbrella of confidence that can be distilled out to other resources to get these deals done. If you can do that, it benefits everyone. It benefits everyone. It gives the founder and the owner an off-ramp. It retains the economic value of that business, no matter the size, whether it's a Subway shop or a manufacturing facility with 100 employees, doesn't matter. And it retains the talent that Dave was talking about, this Fortune 500 talent or otherwise. It gives them optionality that smaller economies where we don't have 9, 10 or more Fortune 500s, it gives optionality to those folks to stay where they are, earning capacity and growth. So I hope that we can create the connective tissue between us. But ultimately, it's about getting deals done.
Very good. Collaboration, getting the deals done, similar measures in our founder world. Dave, anything to add to that as we look ahead 5 years from now? What does what makes this successful? What continues to keep Kentucky at the forefront?
Yeah, I think that's the key part is, if you look across the country, really there's only two states that have taken a statewide effort at ETA, Colorado with employee ownership, and Indiana has been starting to get very aggressive with it over the last year. We have a chance for Kentucky to be a leader, really across the whole US of what this means to be supportive of ETA and build a great community around it. So I want to see us be that leader.
Yeah.
We're playing catch up in a lot of other areas of entrepreneurship and venture funding and tech startups and everything else. This is one we have a chance to be one of the leaders. So we should not give up that opportunity. So I want to see us do that and grasp that opportunity. And most importantly, see that transition of great businesses that continue to be linchpins for our community, become job creators, growth drivers, and see what we can do to create more of it, and also include the local ownership. Personally for me, the reason I did an ETA deal first time was as an owner. I love investing in the space now, and I'd much rather invest in the companies that make our community great than anything else. So I want to see that community continue to be built.
And hopefully another strategic pathway toward, of course, business retention and expansion. So all fits within our economic development umbrella. All right, I'm looking at some of our questions here. Let's see. So one question that has come in is, does this include assisting in any industry? And what about franchised? Is franchise ownership also part of the ETA movement? Is it considered such?
You will see a lot of franchises listed on the broker sites. So it is a spot. There is a whole different ecosystem around people that help sell franchises and transition that. So I call it ETA adjacent. It definitely fits in there, and we have many folks that do that. But it is slightly different because you're buying something that has a national support network versus you buy a local HVAC company. There's no playbook of what you should run with that. So I'd say it's related, but not pure ETA.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. There's folks have dropped in some additional listings. So there's bizbuysell.com, as well as thank you, Annika, for all of the resources you've dropped into the chat. So grab those before you leave. Just to kind of close us out, any final thoughts, Brian or Dave?
I mean, for me, I would encourage people to consider this. And again, I guess I just sort of harp on the optionality of it. I agree with Dave that the opportunity is right there in front of us, and to quantify it, would be great. And then operationalize it, which is these businesses exist out there. It's by and large unsophisticated sellers with a lot of times unsophisticated buyers or first timers, let's call it. But in plain sight, we don't, maybe Cincy might be different, but in Louisville, we don't necessarily have big institutional private equity or frankly, big institutional venture. But we have smaller entities and individuals in plain sight that are highly capable in helping to coach folks through the process, or service providers that have done this many times, maybe not here, or certainly here as well, but all over the place. So the resources exist there. We've got to consolidate those and make them known, and then make sure that this is talk to service providers, get in front of clients, that they know that these communities exist, help us to create them, consolidate them. And then as those opportunities come to service providers, that they know that there's an off-ramp in Louisville or in Cincy, or as these things pop up, that it is an option, and because they want to keep that business there, they have the same interest. But it doesn't mean it's some kind of haircut or discount on the exit. That's not what it's. This is capitalism and entrepreneurs. But it is an option.
Cool. All right. With that, thank you both. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dave, for the momentum leadership that you're providing in your respective regions, and then sharing with us today just what I would call the first primer in introduction into ETA. I know we'll have continued conversations along this realm as more of our support organizations bring this into the fold, provide those support services, connections, et cetera, to other resources. Thank you for sharing all of the various resources.
Hey, Lisa, just one more thing. Sorry, but if anybody's out there, our website is etalouisville.com.
Yep.
And anybody can go and sign up. We try to do monthly meetups, and they've been really good so far. It's still pretty raw the way we do it, but anyone that has interest in this, just send them to the website, including anybody on the call. Sign up. You'll be on the mailing list, but expect to do work with us, right? This is an evolving thing,
right?
All volunteer driven, but would appreciate anybody's support and any interest they have in helping us develop.
Excellent. And of course, CincyETA.com as well.
Yeah.
All right.
And feel free, if you want to launch an effort in your community, reach out to Brian and I. We can give you the good, the bad, the ugly.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Yeah, Annika's on it. I love that. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and Christine, if you can bring Dana to the forefront here. She with us today, so she can do her hub highlight. She says she's here. We'll make her panelist. And while Christine is doing that, oh, she's here. Great. Dana, if you want to go ahead and if you've got slides to share, if you want to go ahead and share from your desktop. And while you're doing that, Dana, of course, is our relatively new Innovation Hub Director in our Appalachian region in the eastern part of the state with SOAR Innovation. And we've asked her to just provide the latest and greatest on what's happening in her region and what has allowed for SOAR's continued success. Dana, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Are you all able to see my slides?
We see your slides and your next slide, yes.
Oh, okay, but you're not seeing the full screen?
It's pretty full screen for us. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, we will go ahead and get started. Yeah. Well, actually, I think, let me see. I can adjust it and show you my full screen. Don't know if that's any better for you all.
There's a message that you can switch the display setting at the top. Display settings up there on your menu.
Okay, yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yeah. That better, guys?
There we go. You got it.
Okay, perfect. All
Thank
right,
you, Craig.
Yes, thank you. All right, so I'll go ahead and start. First, I wanted to just introduce or reintroduce our team. So this is our SOAR Innovation team. I'm Dana Barnett. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship at SOAR. And then we have Jared Fugit, our Startup Success Specialist, who is a software engineer with tons of startup experience. And then Colt Swint, who is a computer engineer as our startup pipeline coordinator. So a very strong team that is unique to supporting tech and tech-enabled founders as they're looking to scale. I also want to introduce you, if you haven't got to meet him already, our entrepreneur in residence, Rick West. Rick West is a co-founder and former CEO of a company called Field Agent, a global mobile data collection company, and has had tons of experience in business with over 17 years at Procter & Gamble and international experience. He comes to us with an eagerness and an enthusiasm to help founders. And then we also have a relatively new entrepreneur in residence, Kevin Davis. He comes to us with 30 years of experience leading and scaling a multi-unit business with expanding to multiple states. And Kevin also is just someone who loves to help and to give back to the community and to the founders of Eastern Kentucky. So we're very grateful to have both of them joining us on our team. Another thing I wanted to highlight as we round out our fiscal year 26 is we did a lot of outreach, and of the startups served, we covered 26 of our 29 counties. Our region is the largest region in the state of Kentucky as far as the innovation hubs go, and spanning around 150 miles if you were to drive it front to back. And would take you about 3.5 hours. So to cover about 90% of our territory and have founders reaching out to us from 26 of those 29 counties is a great feat for us this year. And we do hope to continue that outreach and get to 100% next year. That is one of the goals of mine. Some of the highlights from this past year, we had a very successful Capital Investor Roundtable series that brought together investors and people in the capital space to discuss what's happening in the region, discuss deal flow, and how we can improve our systems. We also had one of our startups on the startups to watch list. That would be Toothsure. So very grateful for amplifying their work there. And then we also had an ecosystem convening where someone from Awesome Inc. did join us. So we're grateful for our friends at Awesome Inc. And we did have a great turnout at the ecosystem convening. Everyone's very eager to support and share resources to help founders in our region. So we look forward to continuing that this year as well. Another highlight that we'll mention is the Startup Appalachian Demo Day that happened in Ashland, Kentucky. We did have 4 founders graduate from our Startup Appalachia Accelerator, a very intensive 8-week course that came with direct coaching from both of our EIRs. So each founder got to work with both EIRs as well as our team. And this is sponsored by Community Trust Bank with $24,000 in grant funding going out to startups in this community. So we did have Dr. Bo, Ethan Garland, and Edward Connors with Statuslight Systems, Mark Woolard with Immersive Point VR, Obadiah Williams with Betacraft Solutions, and then Jenny Koss with the Kentucky Coffee Trail. 4 very great founders that we're proud of. We are also moving into the Pikeville region. We did host a founders roundtable with founders driving upwards of 3 hours to attend. It was definitely an eye-opening experience for the eagerness of community that founders are seeking. So we look forward to moving that around the region and continuing that going into this new fiscal year. So let's talk about what's ahead for fiscal year 27. So Founders Roundtable, as I mentioned, where founders can meet up across Eastern Kentucky, and we hope to see the founders themselves continue that on in the way of founders breakfasts and coffee with a founder throughout the region. We also plan to do more capital investor roundtables, connecting investors directly to capital partners and look at capital stacking and investment in the Eastern Kentucky region. We're going to do both virtual and in-person capital investor roundtables to garner support from more of the geographic region. We also are going to be starting a fundraising boot camp with the Appalachian Investors Alliance as a partner on that. And this will be hands-on workshop sessions that will get founders investor ready. And there will be 3 levels to that for every stage of founder, whether it's early stage capital or whether they're moving into some due diligence with angel and venture capital, or if they're looking to scale later on. And then we are going to continue our Eastern Kentucky ecosystem convening. We hope to see you all at one of those in the near future. It's a great time to really just learn about a bunch of resources that you might not have known about that's happening throughout the state. And then our Founders Fit, we are going to take a page out of Colorado's book and take advantage of our natural landscapes and mountains. And we're going to do some pitch and a peek type founder mentor sessions where we pair it with a hike on a very accessible trail throughout our region. So we plan to do multiple of those throughout Eastern Kentucky. So come out, see some wonderful views, and get a lot of mentorship. Another thing I want to highlight, and I'll stay on this slide for just a second so you can scan that QR code or grab that URL, but we do have registration open for our SOAR Summit 26. The theme is Building Eastern Kentucky Together, but I will encourage you that throughout the state, this is a premier event that will be beneficial to you if you are in the business space, if you are in the higher education space, or in the entrepreneurial support, or if you're a founder yourself, this is just a great opportunity. And there are applications open on that link for 10 talks. So that is 10 minutes. You talk about a topic that is important to you, and as well as there will be breakout workshops as well. So it goes right along with the theme. One of the workshops we will likely be doing as we finalize the agenda is on entrepreneurship through acquisition, because Eastern Kentucky does see that aging workforce population with great thriving businesses with owners ready to retire. So we hope to support that through the SOAR Summit and education for that. So please scan that QR code. You do get early bird ticket sales until I believe it's August 1st. So another couple of weeks of that. So I would go ahead and sign up. And then lastly, here is a QR code to follow along with all of our events. So join that calendar and stay up to date as we get dates set for the next year. And join us. Collaborate, and we're open to partnerships. I'm very grateful for the ecosystem as a whole in the state of Kentucky and with KY Innovation.
Great. Thank you so much, Dana, for giving us an excellent rundown of your highlights from the last fiscal year and what we can look forward to in the SOAR region in the coming year. I appreciate that. And with that, I've got just a quick rundown here of, there we go. These are some of the upcoming events across the state that you can take a look at. Create is hosting later today their Build Smart Innovation Toolbox. They'll be focusing on Excel bookkeeping every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central Time. Sprocket hosts their Business Support Coffee Hour. I really want to highlight the Key Horse Capital webinar that is on Thursday this week, Structuring Your Company for Investment. They had one of these in their series this past month. It was very successful. And so this is the next topic in the series presented to you from Key Horse Capital. So be sure to share that with your founders who are considering equity investment as part of their fundraising strategy. Amplify is hosting their Welcome to the Ecosystem for all service providers in the startup space later this week on Thursday. And of course, we will host the next quarterly Innovation Hub update next week on Wednesday. That is virtual. Create has another startup garden happening later next week, and Blue North is hosting their open pitch night at Spark House next week on Thursday. The monthly Amplify Venture Connectors meetup, Wednesday, August 5th, new location that is now moving over to Slugger Museum. So make note of that. Sprocket is on it, and August 6th, they have their ETA event, Buying, Selling, and Financing a Business. You can find them at 5 p.m. on August 6th at Sprocket. This series will meet again on Tuesday, August 18th. For the next in our Startup Resources series, and then SOAR has their Customer Discovery Bootcamp coming up later in August, and that is virtual for anyone. So that's what's coming up around the state. Thank you everyone for joining us for this month's Startup Resources series, and we will see you again next month, Tuesday, August 18th, right here. Thanks. Have a great day.